Hi, everyone. Welcome to this interview by Core Recruitment. Thank you very much for joining us today. Core, if you're not aware, is an international recruitment company, and we specialize in mid to senior level appointments across hospitality, leisure, retail, and the other sectors that we cover. Now, we're running this interview series and have been since December, and we've been meeting lots of different entrepreneurs and business leaders and industry characters who are doing really interesting things in our sectors. All of the interviews that we've done can be viewed on our website, which is www.corerecruitment.com. And if you've got any industry leaders who you would like to recommend, then please do get in touch with us because we're always looking to speak to people who are doing interesting things. Now, I'm going to introduce Guy Ivesha now, and this is not a background which has been formed by Zoom or something like that. This is actually the beautiful new club that you've developed that you're sitting in with Maslow's, right, Guy?
Indeed, yes. This is Maslow's Kensington. We're still snagging, and there are people running around placing books and plants and art. But this is our new exciting project.
It looks absolutely stunning. Now, I have to say, I used to work in hospitality operations, and normally, like the arranging of books and plants and artwork is done about 5 minutes before, where the paint is still dry and there's no loo roll in the toilets. But I mean, you're not opening for another 2 weeks, and this looks pretty pristine. This is your third club. So is it now down to a fine process, or is this just an
Yes,
anomaly?
I think we've grown up a bit. You learn from everyone. We're obviously more organized, although I have to confess that also the first ones were had a pretty smooth opening. I think when you have a good team and processes and trackers and things like that, things somehow fall into place a bit better.
Wow. Well, I mean, it looks amazing and it looks extremely organized. I kind of got a little bit distracted with the beauty of your surroundings, so I'm going to backtrack a little bit and maybe say, just to get us kicked off, can you tell us, and I've got to explain with this, that Guy and I actually met at an industry conference when he'd given a talk. And my father used to work in psychiatrics, and he brought me up basically on Maslow's principles. And actually, at Core, we use Maslow when we are training consultants to give them kind of like a bit of an idea of how to get a gauge with candidates and understand kind of like what their pressure points are and try and understand them a little bit better. And I hadn't put it together in my head that Maslow and Maslow was the kind of like, the same thing. So if you can get us kicked off maybe by just telling us a little bit about the concept, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah, so I was born into hospitality, which we'll probably go a bit more into later, but Maslow's is a hospitality-led uh, platform. We focus on members' houses and workspaces. Um, it's really the intersection between culture, productivity, well-being, um, and the objective was to create one location or a house where the modern citizen would be able to achieve everything they need and be very productive. So you can come here and this is your workspace, but it's also your gym, and there are restaurants and bars and lounges and meeting rooms and event spaces. And and it's being productive without being stressed. So instead of having to run around to different uh, locations to achieve different needs, personal or professional, here you can come, relax, be very productive and relaxed, um, and effectively self-actualize, which was the top uh, of the pyramid that
Yeah.
Abraham Maslow spoke about and had many theories on. Um, so that's where the name inspired us, obviously, and we try to weave it into how we do things around here.
Excellent. And it was a discussion with I read it was a discussion with your brother that kind of like, got you to come up with the name. Is this a
Yes,
family
I was.
enterprise?
No, so this is not a family enterprise, but my brother and I mean, my brother, my sister, my parents, and I are all very, very close. But we had an evening with friends, and my brother was there, and I was describing what I was about to do before even having the physical manifestation of a building. It was just me trying to articulate what the concept is. And I said, I still need a name. And my brother was the one that very quickly said, call it Maslow's. And I heard about some of the theories. I wasn't very informed about it, but the more I read about it and how you need to satisfy certain basic needs before you can progress to more advanced needs and ultimately self-actualize, I thought if we can create a physical environment that enables people to go through these stages in life and somehow assist them with their journey to self-actualization, that sounded to me like that name with what I had in mind is a very good match.
Love that. Now, as we were talking about the design and the process and all of that kind of stuff, I mean, there's this phrase, I'm not a design specialist, but this neuroesthetics kind of like thing keeps on kind of coming up in terms of like, creating a workspace and places where people are stimulated. Can you just tell us a little bit about your design process when you're walking into a space and how you come up with it?
So first of all, I never started this with understanding the term neuroaesthetics. I don't think we spoke about it then. I obviously knew that the way spaces are designed could change how people feel. Um, and it's everything from the amount of natural light that a space has to biophilia, so a lot of plants, which you'll see around if you were to come here. Textures, layers. I liked having a level of tactile aspect to everything that we do, and all these things have a pretty major effect on how somebody feels and how they experience space, and it affects your emotions. So I've always tried to design spaces that first and foremost allow people to be themselves and feel comfortable being themselves, because there are many beautiful places that photograph very nicely, but they're not practical, they're not comfortable, um, and so there's design and there's function, and we have to ensure that while it's beautiful, it's also very, very functional. But beyond that, it has to be conducive to creating uh, uh, a community and allowing and encouraging people to interact. And you can do that by how you design the spaces and what you put into spaces. And that's a fundamental piece of what we do.
Absolutely. Now, this is club number three. I can imagine that you've curated and looked at kind of like lots of different kind of like environments. Do you know instantly when you walk into space now if it's somewhere that you're going to have the right light and the right size of room and all of that kind of stuff for it to be a Maslow?
Yes, I mean, with this particular project, it was quite a departure from our first two projects. Both Mortimer House, which opened late in 2017, and One Warwick, which opened in 2023, are beautiful period corner buildings. Mortimer House is a 1930s Art Deco. One Warwick is a 1910 Neo-Baroque. And you walk into these buildings and you almost know instantly where you're putting what. With Kensington, I was sort of convinced by one of our members who was a co-developer on this project to come and see it, because I wouldn't typically go see new builds. This is a new construction. Um, and they said you just have to come see it. While it's a new construction, it's a gorgeous building, and the volumes are really special, and the ceiling heights and all these things that are important to us. Come and see it and see if you think you can sort of translate Maslow's into an environment like this. And that's what I did. I came here and I was quite amazed by the architecture of this new building, which I thought Ashby Capital, who's the owner of this building, did a terrific job on. And unlike also our previous projects that were very uh, vertical, so both houses actually in the West End have a basement, a ground, and six upper floors. Here, it was really spread almost entirely on one floor, and that I've never done before. And when I first walked into this building and to the area that we are now located, it was simply a vast floor plan to a scale that I haven't seen before, and it was all open. So it was quite literally a white canvas, and I didn't know immediately what's going where, but I knew that because of the architecture of the building, the amount of natural light, the floor to ceiling windows, which you don't necessarily see here. Um, the biggest challenge was how do you create these intimate areas within something that's so vast, and there isn't a natural division of. So, but I think, I'll keep you a bit in suspense and I'll invite you to come sit. But I think we did a pretty good job at creating all these beautiful area. On the ground floor, we have this gorgeous double height gallery, which every time I walk into, I'm the happiest person in the world. It immediately changes your mood. It's a real testament to neuroesthetics, but it's beautiful. There's a massive fireplace, very high ceilings, a bar, a lot of vintage and bespoke furniture, books and plants and lamps and accessories, um, and there's also a smaller, more secluded area for somebody who wants to go and work a bit more quietly. We also have Oria there, which is our nutrition-led concept with some of the best dishes you'll ever try that are both extremely healthy and uh, satisfying. Um, and then we connected the ground floor with the first floor through with this beautiful feature staircase that goes up, and you land at this other living room with more beautiful furniture. And this is the den. I'm sitting in the den. There's also a great looking fireplace behind me. This area could also be closed off for a more intimate private gathering. Um, and then we obviously have the gym here and the Pilates and yoga studio and beautiful private offices and gorgeous meeting and private dining rooms. It really has everything that anyone would want um, in one place.
Well, it looks absolutely incredible. Now, I'm glad that you mentioned Ashby Capital because with your first two properties, like you're the owner operator, and this has been kind of like a little bit of a departure for you in terms of partnering with another business, right?
Yes, I mean, so the model here is slightly different. The first project, so Maslow's is a joint venture between me and Kane International, which is a private equity firm. And when we speak later about what I think is the recipe to success, I'll go a little bit more into partnerships and because I think that's obviously obvious, but some people don't put enough emphasis of how they select and choose their business partners. But I couldn't have done Maslow's without Kane International. They backed me, you know, from the outset with when we acquired Mortimer House. And in that project and the second one, we actually own the real estate. We own the freehold. So we're the owner and the operator. Um, with Ashby, they own the building, and we've seen a lot of interest from third-party property owners after seeing what we've created in the West End come to us and say, is there any way we can do the same in our buildings? Um, and I said yes. And from day one, I had this desire to partner with other property owners to create these unique spaces in them. So we've done this under a management agreement, which is more common in the hotel world, maybe. So most of
Mm.
the hotels you see around the world are not owned by the brands that operate them. And this is very similar. We we really uh, um, we don't look at growing through the leasing model, which might be more common. We think that with our product and the kind of value we deliver, uh, then the management contract structure is more relevant.
Excellent. I'm so glad, by the way, that there are people actually walking around behind you, Guy, just to prove that you're not kind of like sitting in front of an image. It's just proving that you're not in front of it, that you are
Yes.
actually kind of like not in front of something AI generated.
I
It's
can try and
fantastic.
move something behind me to see that it's real.
I'm joking. I think people are probably watching this, waiting to see the kind of like image, kind of like around your head, kind of like shudder or something, and it's not. It's actually
Yes.
that beautiful. Now, coming back onto that development piece, because I feel like we're very lucky to be speaking to you now, because I think this interview is probably going to be watched back in 5 years' time when you've opened 10 beautiful things around the world. And Maslow's is kind of like a much larger kind of like global brand, because that's the aspiration, right? To take it outside of the UK.
Yes, I mean we now have three here. We're in early discussions with some other partners to look at additional projects in London. But my real ambition is to take it to other key markets around the world, both in Western Europe and the Middle East and the US. We've identified at least 10 markets that we would absolutely love to bring Maslow's to. Um, and we're pursuing that with the right partners in each market.
So I guess to go into that a little bit further, like, in terms of that process, in terms of identifying 10 markets and the process of how you would go around finding those partners, because I can imagine for a lot of kind of like businesses who are being really successful in one city, the concept of kind of moving internationally in terms of all that development work, it's quite a big scary thing, right? So can you just give us a little bit about the process and if you're getting any support from elsewhere in terms of like how you're facilitating that?
Yeah, I mean, over the years, we've obviously built a network of people we know who operate in various markets around the world. Somehow, uh, we've made a good impression. London is obviously one of the best cities in the world to showcase what you can do.
Hmm.
And it's a little bit easier when you have demonstrated that you've done something well in a city like London to take it to other markets. It's more difficult to go to a smaller market and then bring it to London, perhaps. So between the network that I have and my business partners at Kane International have, uh, we reach out to various contacts that we know are active in these certain markets. We speak to relevant uh, property agents in these markets. We get the word out there first that we want to be in those markets. And somehow that leads to some conversations and discussions with the right owners and developers. That's in a very simplified way what we do. Then you obviously have to ensure that the desires of that partner in that certain market are met and match your desires. And there's a little bit more science that goes into it because somebody who has a certain objective from an investment point of view uh, can in some way clash with the concept if it's something that, we're a longer term concept. Um, we create value in neighborhoods and in buildings of other uh, developers and owners. And this is not a quick fix and turnaround. This is more of a longer standing relationship, I would say. So it has to be somebody that has a bit more patient capital, a longer term view of a market, um, in order to take real advantage of what we bring to the table.
Absolutely. Now, the whole members club, co-working, live work, that whole space. I mean, it's very competitive. And I remember kind of like, a couple of years ago, we were dealing with a private equity company who thought that they discovered the holy grail, that on your kind of like balance sheet before you've even opened the doors, you can have £1 million of revenue sitting there for membership, and every day is a sunny day and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But people are kind of like increasingly kind of like scrutinizing I don't know if your demographic necessarily kind of falls into this category or not, but just in terms of like getting people to have that commitment in terms of launching this kind of like, that number of clubs, like, can you just give us a little bit about kind of like, what techniques you use or how you build that following and how you get the right members in?
Yeah, I guess it with us, it really starts with the location and the relevance of the location to what you do. And we are very particular about the kind of neighborhoods we go into. So we think that, in Fitzrovia and Soho and Kensington, and obviously other certain locations, people would appreciate the proposition of what Maslow's is. These are locations where great residential areas that are also entertainment areas and have high profile retail, um, shopping, and essentially they tick all the boxes. You have people who love living here, love going out here, love working here. And if you tick these three boxes first, then you say, okay, that is a potentially good location for Maslow's. Um, then there's a lot of marketing effort and communications effort to ensure that people are aware of the fact that you're doing this. There's competitive analysis being done. We don't compete really with social clubs. We have a social and community aspect, but we're not a pure social club, which is the majority of the private clubs that are out there. We actually try to satisfy, a professional need alongside a personal need, not just the personal or social requirement. Um, and there and there aren't many who are doing that to the level that we're doing that with the amenities that we're able to offer and the design and the space uh, that we make available to members. I mean, the fitness and wellness is another massive attraction for people. I mean, we believe that you don't have to sacrifice one to gain the other. You can still work really, really hard, be healthy, meet your friends, and be a great family person without killing yourself, hopefully. And this is the environment that we provide to our members. So there's a lot of behind the scenes in terms of how we target the members and how we communicate to them, but it's also quite organic. I mean, we invite people from the community who live around here and work around here to come meet us, see us. We actually engage with them even a bit sooner, asking them what they would want in the space, what would make a house like this appealing to them, what is missing in their life, what is the biggest challenge, and if we can solve for that under one roof, then we believe they will come. And that's, in a very simplified way, our approach to attracting members to our locations.
Yes.
Then
And
there's word of mouth, obviously, and various events, inviting, more intimate events rather than this grand opening party that everybody comes, but they can't really get to know each other.
nice. And like in a city like London, which is so multi-nuclear, I guess, where you have got so many different communities and vibes and feelings and all of that kind of stuff. I mean, you now have three beautiful establishments. How many more do you think you would have in London before you would, I guess, start to cannibalize?
Um, Look, I think London is one of these unique cities in the world that almost every neighborhood is a world. Um, so while we would not go into every area within London, there are still a number of areas that we don't operate in. Um, we can still do at least a handful, I would say, of locations within London without cannibalizing. I think if anything, it only enhances because it creates this network for people. Um, and then we'll venture out to other markets.
Excellent. Now, Guy, just in terms of your own background, because you mentioned like you grew up in hospitality and you've worked for some phenomenal businesses. Can you give us a little bit about your journey prior to Maslow's?
Yes. So I was born here And at the time, my father was a general manager of a luxury hotel in London. He was quite young and starting his career. And those days, general managers lived in hotels as well, which is quite rare today. So, from a very early age, I was in and around hotels. I always admired my father. He's one of my biggest inspirations and really my best friend. So I've followed him, I watched him, I observed what he does, and he's this veteran hotelier. Um, so he infected me with the bug, and I then studied hospitality at university and finance. And I then joined a consulting firm that really only gives advice to people who are in the hotel world, developers, operators, governments, lenders, owners. So everybody really. And that gave me a really good financial basis to understanding why you do a certain project, and if you do it, then at what market positioning and what kind of facilities. Um, and I was there for a few years, and then I actually moved to New York to work on one of the most talked about projects at the time, which is the redevelopment of the famous Plaza Hotel on Fifth Avenue and Central Park. And that was this icon of a hotel. It has been featured more than any other hotel in film and TV series and things like that. And it has been acquired, at the time it was acquired by my previous boss. And we had plans to close it and redevelop it quite substantially. And it was one of the most challenging and rewarding projects I could be involved in. I was very young. I was supposed to report somebody who was much older than me and more experienced than me, but he left 2 weeks before I joined, and I found myself in their shoes at 26 years old. But because of the
Wow.
history I had and growing obviously next to my father and understanding at 26 more than the average 26-year-old when it comes to development and design and operations, I was able to sort of step in and take a more active role in that whole project. Um, and that also, and New York as a city shaped a lot how I think about hospitality, design, approach, uh, you know, tenacity, all these things that New York represents for me. And then I moved back to London and actually joined my father's business, a hotel group he co-founded. So it was the first time I actually worked with my father in London. And it was phenomenal being next to him every day and bringing my view and perspective and knowledge and experience, which was different to his. Uh, I think it was very wise that I didn't join my father straight out of university. He encouraged me to go and work elsewhere, which I think was important. But I worked alongside my dad for 6 years in a company that owns, develops, and operates hotels. So again, gained even more experience. And then I decided to leave because I always wanted to do something on my own. Um, and with his blessing, I left before even having a live project because I knew that I need to put myself in a position where, of hunger and determination and not from a place of convenience. So I said, I'm going to leave. And if I don't leave, I will not find a project. And then I started putting together the whole vision. I started noticing the shift in how people work and travel and how the lines are being blurred more and more between your personal life and your professional life. And I came up with this whole view for Maslow's. I saw these co-working spaces popping up everywhere. I obviously saw some members clubs, but I felt there's a way of bringing them together. The co-working spaces were a bit too basic and juvenile without a hospitality sort of lens. And private clubs were very social, but again, didn't satisfy the other needs. So I said, bringing my hotel and hospitality perspective, let's try to create something that puts it all together. And that was the outcome of Maslow's. And then I was very, very lucky to meet Jonathan Goldstein, who is the CEO and partner at Kane International. It's a private equity firm with offices in New York, LA, Miami, London, and now Abu Dhabi as well. Um, and we clicked, and we shared a similar life philosophy. It's almost like choosing somebody to marry. You need to know that everybody's okay in the good times, but if somehow you have to go through a rough patch, you'll get through it with somebody that you share these values with. And Jonathan was that person. Um, he agreed to back me, and he's been my partner since. And I think that's probably the wisest decision. You need to choose who you're doing something with, and if you got that choice right, you got 50%. You're 50% there essentially. Um, so that's my background.
That's amazing. I mean, I guess for my final question, I guess if you were to go back to 2017, start the company all over again, is there one thing that you would set up differently or you would do differently or any wall that you would not run into or something? I mean, obviously COVID. We all would have liked to
Yeah.
avoided that 3 years, but I mean, what would you have changed?
Um, I think not a lot. There are, little things that are potentially unnoticeable to the member. Uh, the way we work has changed. So things, I think one of the key, uh, ideas of how you evolve is quite important. You need to pivot all the time. We can't assume that what we did, 8 years ago is relevant today. I mean, COVID has changed a lot of things for us. So the one thing that I think is most important for business is to be flexible, and humble, and make changes as you go. And these are tweaks that, if I were to describe them, you would think it's insignificant, but they're all little things that you do to get there. I mean, even the type of memberships that we offer and being more flexible with that, and having different tiers to appeal to different people and budgets and needs. Most people just have one sort of offering, so we're flexible with that. But the way we use spaces today has, even in 8 years since we opened the first one, has changed a lot. I mean, people, first of all, fitness and wellness has become more important. So as we expand, we're looking to put more of these kind of facilities into our venues. There's constantly a shift between how much of the amenities are becoming, almost a core product. So with future buildings, we may have maybe even less offices, but more fitness, recovery, well-being, uh, even contrast therapy, and things that you would never imagine that would go into an office building. But this is what people want, and we've identified that, and we want to do more of that. So I think you have to be sort of with your hand on the pulse, and with every change, you need to act fairly quickly to make sure that you're still relevant.
Absolutely. I'm like Columbo, so I am going to ask one final question. But having worked in recruitment for 20 years, I've been really lucky to have met some incredible entrepreneurs who create beautiful venues, seamless service, incredible F&B, all things that you guys have got in abundance. But you sometimes sit down with the entrepreneur and you can see the perfect room, but they notice all the little tiny kind of like things. Can you create the most beautiful spaces, and I'm not questioning that for a second, but can you relax in your own space and not see the little things, or can you, or do you need to go somewhere else?
Um, that's an interesting question. I think, when I'm with my family on the weekend, uh, I tend to go to other places, but for many reasons. One, I obviously spend a lot of time in these spaces during the week, so even I need a break from those areas, and I also want to be inspired by what others are doing, and I want to make sure I'm aware of what's happening elsewhere in the market, if it's restaurants or hotels or clubs. Otherwise, I won't have time to see any of that. But it is very true that I seem to focus a lot on the flaws. I mean, people walk into here, and even now, when I show this to people for the first time, I get to experience it again and again every time, and I never get tired of this. Every time I take somebody around, to me, it's like a child is born again. I see it again through their eyes, and I'm proud of it, and I'm in awe of it myself. But I can very quickly and often do switch to a mode of what's not right and see things that maybe most don't, and I have to fix them. You can't always think everything is perfect.
Absolutely. Guy, thank you so much for taking the time. Thank you so much for running over things with us. Good luck with number three. I think there's going to be many more beautiful things that everybody else is going to appreciate that you're going to do. I have absolutely no doubt. And we can't wait to see that. Maybe we should do another interview in 2 years' time when you've just opened your
With
site in New
pleasure.
York and you're just ready to do it, because I can sniff a bit of a love of New York in what you were talking about.
I
That
would
might be
love
coming
that.
next. Excellent. Thanks so
Perfect.
much.
Thank you so much for having me.